How do you define cultural appropriation? Cultural appropriation, also called cultural misappropriation, occurs when a person from one culture adopts a fashion, iconography, trends, or styles from another culture. Some of the most controversial and harmful examples of cultural appropriation happen when the culture being appropriated is one of a historically oppressed group.
Through pop culture history, minority women have had their culture appropriated by celebrities in the high fashion community. Black women, especially, have experienced discrimination against their natural hair and hairstyles of choice. Hairstyles such as afros, dreads, cornrows, and other forms of natural hair have been looked down upon and seen as unprofessional when worn by black women. However, when the same styles have been worn by celebrities or high fashion models, it is seen as trendy or unique. The Kardashians are well known for appropriating black hairstyles, especially cornrows and braids. For these exact same hairstyles, black women have lost jobs and have missed out on other opportunities, while celebrities and high fashion designers have taken these styles and made them acceptable. These hairstyles have been worn by black women for generations and are often used as a way to protect our hair from damage, so why aren't they allowed to wear these hairstyles that have no effect on them as people but only their appearance? Also, more than often, black women aren't even allowed to wear the natural hair that grows out of their head without it being seen as unprofessional, so white women should not be able to wear the same hairstyles and it be acceptable. Black women are having their culture stolen from them and in a way where the culture cannot be shared because for one group the styles are inappropriate and for another group the style is fashionable. Until black women are completely accepted for their hair and hairstyles, no other group should be able to profit from it. This can also be seen in white men attempting to wear scarves and do-rags like black men to try and appear cool or trendy.
Going off of waves, let's take a look at how people attempt to emulate black culture through their clothing. Do-rags. These head wraps are usually made of silk, polyester, and are used to keep the moisture and styling on one's hair. These can be derived from cultural headwear from Africa and the Caribbean. However, those who don't share the same ethnicity oftentimes don these wraps for the culture or just to appear to look cool. In the same vein, when a person of color is using a do-rag or a wrap in a public space, it is often met with frowns or confused glares. This is a blatant use of another culture to please an aesthetic or social desire. Speaking of things that only appear to or assume to look cool, men sagging their pants below their waist can be seen as a sort of cultural appropriation. Originally stemming from prison inmates not having belts, the tendency to sag one's pants is not only aesthetically unpleasant, but likening oneself to the incarcerated. Once many young African American men begin to partake, other cultures follow to look hard or look cool. While this may seem commonplace today, wearing basketball sneakers for casual wear not only comes from African American basketball players, but African Americans in general. The best example of such are Nike Air Jordans. Before the late 90s and the early 2000s, basketball sneakers were specifically just for the said sport. However, once Michael Jordan retired and his sneakers began to get retroed, in addition to players like Allen Iverson and celebrities like Kanye West, sneakers began to make their way into the high fashion, whereas before, they were seen as more juvenile. This high fashion connection led to streetwear's current popularity as well. Nowadays, it is very common to see people of all ages, regardless of gender and ethnicity, wearing a pair of J's for casual wear and style. Clothing is a vital part of any culture, and when other cultures use and devalue it for clout, it is inherently disrespectful. A uniting notion for clothing in general is that oftentimes when people of color wear these clothes, they're frowned upon. However, when a celebrity or someone not of that ethnicity wears it, it is seen positively and out of the box, unique and fashionable, almost as if it was a costume.
Another form of appropriation is the use of blackface, where a non-black actor or individual uses makeup and other costume elements to caricature black bodies and racial stereotypes. The use of blackface was popular in the 1800s, where white performers would exaggerate black features and stereotypes in minstrel shows and other performances. Further, the stereotypes represented by these white actors created, perpetuated, and firmly established racist perceptions and ideas of black people and culture in society, which has long-living consequences that we still see today. Even in the 1900s, there was use of blackface in popular media, such as the Amos and Andy Show, which originally featured two white actors using blackface and caricaturizing black culture in the way they spoke. Over time, the use of blackface became less acceptable in the US, but even today can still be seen in Halloween costumes, fashion, and popular media. The motives for using blackface has likely changed over time as well. Originally, in films such as Birth of a Nation, blackface would serve as a method of controlling how black people were represented in media, and thus having control over society's perceptions of black stereotypes. However, many instances of blackface we see today are due to a lack of care or responsibility on one's part in terms of considering an image's effects on society or the impact of perpetuating historically offensive ideology. Further, in some cases, the careless use of blackface could be due to a lack of accountability, due to a lack of minority voices and representation in a company, allowing for ignorant ideas to be produced. This is seen in cases such as when Gucci introduced an item of clothing that blatantly employed blackface as its selling point. However, there are also cases where an individual may use blackface intentionally, such as in a Halloween costume, as a way of appropriating black culture or identity in the way they see fit, without considering the harm that comes from the images they create. In order for society to progress and work to eliminate these negative stereotypes of minorities, it's crucial that we continue to call out individuals or brands that use harmful representations, such as blackface, or unsubscribe from them completely, as a way to introduce accountability for actions that further racist ideas. It is not enough that the intentions were innocent, as by using blackface, the damage done is too great to ignore.
Artists like Jay-Z, Beyonce, Tupac, Whitney Houston, and many other musicians paved the way for black artists to have voices through genres rap and R&B. Hip-hop culture is perceived to be shared by marginalized groups, but its music touches many different groups of people through various backgrounds. For white artists who participate in the genre, there's a thin line between respecting the culture and being a culture vulture. Artists like Eminem, Mac Miller, and Justin Timberlake all seem to successfully participate in this genre without disrespecting the foundation. Artists like Iggy Azalea and Bad Baby have been accused multiple times of appropriating hip-hop's culture and disrespecting the sound.
Now, looking through the scope of linguistics, there are several examples of cultural appropriation that we tend to see fairly often. One, of course, that is the most glaring and controversial is the use of the N-word. Unlike older times, we don't see this word overly used to discriminate against African Americans. More times than not, this form of cultural appropriation comes from music. Since its beginning, hip-hop has gradually moved towards the mainstream, meaning that the audience is no longer just the inner city in which they were created. It's expanded to a much larger scale, allowing it to be consumed by outsiders, which mainly consist of young white people or other people of color. This is where the problem begins, as many people who aren't African American are now open to becoming fans and even be creators of hip-hop. They feel that they're also open to use of the N-word, even when consent was never given.
Voodoo, I could do what you do, believe me. Niggas give me heebie-jeebies.
When videos such as this surface the internet and is not met with resistance, it can sometimes create a domino effect, allowing others of a different race to believe that they too can now say that one word in their favorite songs. Now, it takes no extensive history lesson to be knowledgeable of the vulgar connotation this term once had in America. Therefore, when looking at the politics behind it, it should be only justifiable to allow those who are most offended by it the power to use it under their own context and liking. This, however, is not where the examples of cultural appropriation and linguistics end. Linguistics also expand to the tone and style in which words are spoken. Although culturally there is no true way to quote-unquote talking black, it's clear when some people who aren't African American clearly avoid speaking in their regular tones in attempts to achieve this goal. For example,
I'm gonna fall with you, bro. Whack ass school. What's up, mama? You up in this, John?
oftentimes the motive behind people who do this are rooted in their narrative that blackness now in the 21st century is now often seen in popular culture and is classified as quote-unquote cool. In this example as well, it's best that it's left behind and only allowed for African Americans.
Oftentimes, people mistake cultural appropriation for appreciation of a culture. Some say appropriation doesn't exist because no culture is completely original. However, others believe musicians and designers and celebrities of the like get a free pass because they are creating art, and that is open to discussion and interpretation. We believe that the key to expressing appreciation rather than appropriation is to understand the culture that you're borrowing from, including its history of oppression and marginalization.